Hello and welcome to What the Tech from Boast AI, where we talk with some of the brilliant minds behind new and exciting tech initiatives to learn what it takes to tackle technological uncertainty and eventually change the world. Today, I am thrilled to welcome VanHack CEO Ilya Brotzky onto the show. At VanHack, Ilya and his team are on a mission to create a borderless world for tech talent by connecting the world's top software engineering, design, and digital marketing talent with some of the leading innovating businesses in North America. With more than 450,000 members from over 100 countries, VanHack is the largest workforce that is ready to relocate in the world, truly walking the walk when it comes to connecting cultures through code. So, along with helping companies grow through on-demand staffing, Ilya is also a force in both the Vancouver, BC, and broader Canadian ecosystem. I know I caught up with Ilya at my first Collision conference in Toronto this past summer, but he's been working with our team at Boast for years to help VanHack bring their game-changing solutions to reality. He's on an incredible mission and has a network behind him to make it work. I couldn't be more excited to pick his brains about his journey through the startup space, what it takes to succeed in today's market, and tips for any founders launching tech in 2024. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Ilya.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here.
Awesome. So I know I just gave a little bit of a primer, but could you tell our listeners, who is Ilya? Tell us about your background, how you got into the startup space in the first place, and basically how you came to VanHack.
Great. Yeah. So I think for me, it's kind of a business that I've been connected with ever since I can remember, actually, in a way. My first memory of my life actually was moving from the Soviet Union to Israel back in 1991, getting on a plane and leaving home and moving to a new country. So I've been an immigrant since my first memories. And then shortly after, we moved over to Canada in 1993. And so I grew up here in Canada, was a competitive swimmer, and got to go to university in the US. After which I got three job offers, one in Brazil, one in India, and one in China. And the one in Brazil was the most appealing. So I went there and worked at a startup accelerator for a few years, where I met a lot of software developers who were really good at tech coding and software development, but not so good at English and soft skills. So we created an English school for developers, which then evolved into a recruiting business, which is kind of what VanHack's about now. So yeah, it's been a long journey, and I really enjoy helping connect people and help them get jobs abroad.
I love that. Now, talking about specifically VanHack too, obviously this came together through years of personal experience and seeing firsthand that there was a need in the market for this kind of solution. Could you tell me a little bit about what makes VanHack different from other staffing solutions in the market, and whether that's even the best way to characterize VanHack as a staffing solution, or if there's another terminology that you'd use to characterize it?
Yeah, I think that's fine. There's the HR and hiring space. There's so many nuanced terms, and they all kind of mean basically the same thing as helping people get hired, whether that's recruitment or staffing or job board or something like that. It's all kind of flavors of the same, trying to say it solve the same problem. I would say our biggest differentiator is our global community of 450,000 engineers who are interested in international jobs. So we kind of bring new talent to the talent pool, or bring new fish to the pond, if you will. And so that allows us to give companies access to talent that they didn't even know was interested or existed. And if even if they are looking to hire globally, they just don't know how to deal with that issue themselves, of how to do the visa, etc. So yeah, we've really carved our niche in that space, and helped companies hire about 2,000 people now. And I think another kind of differentiator is that we can do a large amount of volume. So when you're looking globally, you can find people who, or a lot of, kind of niche skills that you just can't find locally. And lastly, I would say a big differentiator is the diversity that we can add to a team, because, we can find, a lot more women in tech, a lot more candidates from specific backgrounds or nationalities, or could speak different languages, and things like that, that would be valuable in a tech recruiting company.
That's fantastic, because specifically, you hear a lot of headlines about DEI requirements becoming less of a push these days, but I do know that that is still very close to heart for a lot of folks who are looking for a more diverse workforce to support their innovation. So kudos and checks in that box. But on even the point about expanding globally the pool of talent for specific specializations and specific roles, I know when the work from home revolution, if you want to call it that, started at the top of pandemic, a big resounding theme was like, hey, if we're all remote, that really levels the playing field for who can work for your company, even just taking it from, I'm based here in Boston, folks in your metro area versus people who can commute to your office, or people who can just go on a VPN and work on your product or work on your solution remotely. So taking it to a global scale, tell me a little bit about some of the successes you've had with that and what that has looked like.
Yeah, for sure. I think our kind of most famous and notable success cases skip the dishes. They came to us in 2017, right after or right during the acquisition by Just Eat. So they were growing like crazy at that time and didn't have enough technical talent in the prairies to fulfill the demand that they had. They had this problem where if their architecture or their software went down during the peak hours on Friday night and Saturday night when everyone's ordering food, if they crashed for even an hour, it would throw off their whole system of the couriers, the restaurants, the people ordering food for days, because it's such a logistic and data-driven business. And so they came to us and said, we need to hire as many engineers as we can, because yeah, they were just hiring all their friends' company, like all the engineers at their friends' companies, and taking all the talent in the prairies, and also it's just really hard to find engineering talent outside of the prairies who wants to move there, right? It's not, for an engineer living in Toronto or Vancouver or Silicon Valley, it's not the number one destination for people wanting to move. And no offense to anyone from that area, it's just the way things are. And so we worked with them and helped them make about 20 hires in the first 3 months. And they said, how can we take this to the next level? And I kind of put out an email saying, here like a bunch of things. And the last bullet point I said was, here's a crazy idea. Why don't you guys just fly down to Brazil with me and my team, and we'll do a recruiting fair with you and a few hundred engineers over a weekend. And they loved it. And so we did that. And that was one of our first of 3 recruiting missions that we did over the years. Did 2 in Brazil and 1 in Colombia. And yeah, they hired about 78 people over that weekend, where the coding challenge, HR interview, tech interview, all in the same time. It was a lot of work, a lot of fun, a lot of energy and adrenaline. But years later, you can kind of see people getting their permanent residency, their citizenship, buying houses, growing their careers, and obviously Skip has become a household name. So yeah, that's definitely one I'm really, really proud of.
That is awesome. There's a couple points actually that I want to pull on from that too. The first one about there might not being that available talent again locally or in your backyard or even in your province, just based on what industry you're trying to emerge from. You've got to look globally and expand your reach in terms of just who you're looking to be on your team for all of that. And I love that you guys are able to do that. I'd love to know a little bit beyond even just there might not being available talent in certain localities. Why Canada? And you had mentioned earlier too that you had immigrated to Canada eventually, but is there anything unique about the ecosystem in Canada that makes it easier for folks to relocate eventually, or even if they aren't going to move there on a permanent basis? Just in general, what is different about Canada versus the rest of the world in making a company like VanHack succeed?
I think the biggest difference is that we have a visa process that is fairly straightforward and works. Actually, we had to move to Europe in 2016, and actually, sorry, 2017, because of the lack of tech visa to Canada. We moved to Germany and we are doing a startup program there. And then in 2017, halfway through the year in June, Canada launched the Global Talent Stream, which then helped us, really relocate and migrate more people to Canada. I think it's one of those things where there's a lot of great options out there, and countries like Canada need to continuously, keep working on improving the quality of life and the access to services and housing in order to stay competitive. Definitely in the last year or so, we're starting to see more people not be as bullish on Canada. So I have to say it's not something that you can just take for granted and kind of will always be this great place that people want to move to. I also do think that one day, whether that's in a few years or who knows how long, that the U.S. is going to reform immigration. I think that'll eventually finally happen. Who knows? I think, on a long enough timeline. And then I think Canada will be in trouble because I think a lot of global talent would prefer to move there. I mean, obviously, some people want to come to Canada too, versus in Europe as well, etc. But the U.S. salaries and cost of living is a really nice thing. Even though they have to pay for healthcare, I think a lot of people can get a good plan. So yeah, that all that is to say is that Canada's great, but it's definitely not, something that you can just kind of say, hey, we've got this in the bag. Let's just continue doing what we're doing. I think there's always going to be needs to improve and push things forward on things, and keep the country honest.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point you made about to just eventually things change and that you have to keep your eye on just the geopolitical climate in general to understand where these opportunities are going to be and where you're going to be able to actually do that business. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the ecosystem you're in. I know you guys aren't just exclusively Canada necessarily, it's more of a broader North American offering, but in terms of the partners that you work with in your community, can you tell me a little bit? I know Boast works with you guys. We've been partners and we've been in your network for a long time, but even beyond Boast, what are some of the kind of relationships that you think have been critical to helping VanHack succeed and execute on your mission?
Um, I think the community kind of hubs across the country really helped us. Places like BC Tech, Communitech, Calgary Economic Development Commission. Um, there's a lot more that I'm not remembering right now. But all these kind of Mars, they really opened their doors to us and helped share what you can do, because I think there's a good fit between what VanHack offers and their community members. Early stage startups don't have the war chest that big tech companies have, so they're looking for talent who could be at a more reasonable rate, also talent that will stay a little bit longer, and those are kind of things that the VanHack talent pool has to offer. So yeah, I'd say those kind of organizations really helped us over the years. And obviously our investors as well. So Techstars and Golden Section.
For founders in our audience, which is our primary audience, we're mostly talking to those early stage startup founders today. What is some sage wisdom you could give about getting started in today's economy, whether that's in Canada, whether that's in the US, whether it's through an incubator program, whether it's through an accelerator, just any kind of thoughts, just because I know right now all the headlines would have you thinking it's impossible to get going. You see doom and gloom on the VC side, depending on who your source is, but I think people have been bogged down or broken by the Dragon's Den and the Shark Tank of it all, thinking that you need to give over so much equity in your business to kind of see it succeed, and you have to have that outside funding come in. But beyond even the funding of it all and diversifying your capital strategy, just what is some advice about getting your business in order to succeed in 2024 that you'd like to share with the community?
I think the first thing is that you shouldn't just start a business to start a business. The thing with starting a business is it's kind of a cool thing to do. It's in the news. It's in vogue. It's not that it's not everything is cracked up to be, right? I think a lot of people see the headlines and the TechCrunch or whatever, and they don't realize the difficulty. And for a lot of people, unless it's something that you really just can't do, and this is like you're literally like you can't stop thinking about it. This is like you're obsessed with it. If you don't do this, you're just gonna like regret it for the rest of your life. Because I started a lot of businesses when I was, over the years, and my heart really wasn't in it. And when your heart's not in it, then ultimately there's some kind of reason to give up. And I think that just generally is not worth doing if you really aren't going to do it. So let's assume that that's in place for you. Then I would say, like for me, I did VanHack as a side project for a year before I went full time. And I only went full time when I was making as much or more from VanHack than I was in my day job. So I think that that's, the way I would recommend someone do it. Or at least like save up a bunch of money and then go up, go and start the company. As far as investors, you don't need investors to get started, especially these days where everything is so cheap to do compared to how it was before. Like you can get a really simple MVP up and a website using all these online tools and newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I feel like if you can't figure that out, then that's like step one of figuring out how to be a tech entrepreneur. So yeah, I think like if you really have this passion that you need to do something and it's like there's no other alternative, and you can find a way to do it and get it off the ground, whether it's even working like 5-10 minutes a day, just consistently working at it while you're at a job, or save up money and quit and then do it full time. But yeah, you definitely don't and I think I hate it when I see like, oh, I need a technical co-founder, oh, I need an investor, oh, I need ABCD. Like those are just excuses that you're telling yourself. So and yeah, I think like if you really want to do it, then do it. But don't do it if you just kind of want to be cool, because it's not fun most
Uh,
days.
Absolutely. That's actually a resounding theme from a lot of the founders we have on here. And I just want to pull out that thread too. Don't just start a business for the sake of it. Don't just do it because you think, oh, I can get rich. People are doing AI. Add that on to whatever my new product that I'm still building. I don't even have an MVP yet, but that's a business model, right? It's not. You need to actually be solving an acute problem. You actually need to have customers for your solution. You need to your point, maybe not make it your full-time gig out the gate, but do the work in the background to understand the white space. Look at where the opportunity is. And if you have ideas, if you have an innovation in your brain jockeying around, but you don't necessarily have that customer base yet, don't dive in until you have that customer base. But at the same time, too, your point, the barrier to entry to get a business off the ground today is significantly lower than it used to be in the past. You can create a website. You can start doing that market research early. You don't even necessarily have to have an MVP in place to start that facet of your R&D at least. So loved hearing that, Ilya. Thank you so much for pulling up that point. Now I'd love to know what's in store for VanHack over the next.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a lot going on. I think the biggest thing for us is we're launching a new product called the Canadian Engineering Office that allows non-Canadian companies to relocate their global engineers to Canada to be better aligned with time zone and improve the candidate's quality of life. So that's something that we found that's been really exciting and kind of a new way for us to fulfill our mission of helping, people get jobs abroad or relocate abroad. Yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing. And then generally just helping companies hire for hard to fill tech positions. Just we've had some good experience with Boast. If folks want to use them to get their shred done, highly recommend it. And yeah, I really appreciate your support, Paul. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ilya.